won't we go ahead and dive right in? Teo, I believe that you're taking this for us.
Yep, I'm taking it. And so we have to start on this week's segment, Pope Watch. Come on, guys.
Boom, boom,
That's
pow,
not a
pow.
scary. Okay, guys, you have to practice your. Oh gosh, I'm scared. I mean, come on, come on. We practiced this before.
Oh,
Anyways, talking about the Pope and the awful stuff that he keeps doing. Thank you, BBC. This week, they released this article which says former Pope Benedict failed to act over abuse. New report finds published. I remember that when I was a child, people would call this guy Nasinger because he's German and his last name is Ratzinger. I always suppose because it was insulting, but now that I see how he behaved, it's like, screw this guy, he's awful. From the article, this Pope failed to act over at least 4 child abuse cases when he was Archbishop of Munich. A German probe into the Catholic Church has alleged. Pope Benedict Jose Ratzinger held the position from 1977 to 1982, and he has denied all accusations because obviously he's going to be innocent. And yeah, guys, we have talked about this over and over in here. I would love to say, oh, this is surprising, but it isn't. Sadly, it isn't. Every single time that I am here talking about the Catholic Church, it gets worse and worse. We have talked about dead children in Canada and their churches. We have talked about this French institution, Les Paroles et Liberté, the Liberated Word, an organization that is made up by victims of the Catholic Church, and that they have revealed that over 5,000 children have been constantly raped by nuns and priests in the last decade in the houses of the church. We have talked about the situation with Sister of Mercy. The Sister of Mercy. We have talked about how the Pope blamed victims in South America. We have talked about how the Mother Teresa tried to protect her friends who were pedophiles just to stop the church from being stained, among many, many, many other things that keep happening. So, yeah, I'm not surprised about this. It's very sad, and it breaks me every time that I read how the Catholic Church is protecting pedophiles constantly, how these guys, Pope, he knew what was happening, but he's denying it. But come on, it was informed to him, and he did nothing about this. So it really saddens me that we keep reading this news, more information keeps coming out, and people keep protecting the church. That really breaks me, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
yeah. I wish that we could say that this is rare, right? But we are constantly talking about these topics, specifically with the Catholic Church and and child rapists actually getting off, and it wasn't, and it's not just children, it's also the nuns that happen to serve in the Catholic Church. A bunch of different orders have been reported sexual misconduct, sexual abuse, even forcing abortions or taking their children and putting into adoption, just to cover up the sexual abuse. So it's rancid, unfortunately, in this organization. And another thing that I was even looking in my research, that there has been reports of sexual misconduct and sexual child abuse from the Catholic Church since the 11th century. That was the first documented case, and I'm just like, I I don't quite understand how an organization is supposed to tout such benevolence, to the people who come to it in order for them to receive some type of solace, feeling God, etc., but have to constantly, or your children and others who may even want to serve in certain offices, are constantly under the guise that something bad would might happen to the children that you send to school with them, or the nuns that you would send to an order, or any of those things. It's just absolutely awful. But I'm going to stop talking because I can talk about this forever, but I'm going to go ahead and just move it on down the line. Dan, what you got on this?
So again, it's unfortunate, as you've mentioned, that this is being talked about because, well, quite frankly, I mean, it's stopped becoming news at this
Right.
point that, oh, look, another case has been found of abuse and cover up, right? And so, like, people, often bring up, well, why pick on the Catholic Church, right? There's all kinds of organizations that hold children, and abuse happens, and that's completely true. The difference, of course, being, they don't all claim to be the moral authority of the world, but also that other organizations are going to have structures inherent to that organization to prevent that kind of abuse that's happening, right? And time again, the Catholic Church has shown that they have not been doing that. Instead, of course, the typical fare is when something comes up, they move those pastors to avoid controversy in that area, and to give them working. It's always protecting the clergy first over that of the victims, which is really, really unfortunate. If the president of a company is found to be directly in the knowledge of their own employees having some sort of sexual misconduct, I mean, that just wouldn't fly. It would be absolutely astounding, and there would be huge news over this, right? It's one thing if part of the Catholic Church was dealing with it. Usually when you find these kinds of stories, it can be an archbishop, or it can be other people who work in that hierarchy, but it doesn't always necessarily go up to the Pope. That's what's interesting about this story. And I think what people need to take away from this is direct implication of the Pope, right? And
Right.
if the Pope is found knowing of this, then that just has bigger consequences overall for the integrity of the church. So, I'm not going to go into detail because I don't know if we even have time to go into the history of what some of the history of the clergies look like, but it's actually quite unusual that the Pope is directly involved in some of this. I mean, again, it does happen, but it's usually not that high up on the
Hmm.
hierarchy. So,
Yeah, it's usually when you hear about stories, it's usually like, the priest over a diocese, or even like,
yeah.
like you mentioned, like the archbishop, or
Mhm.
there have even been reports of cardinals being,
Right.
part of like these particular scandals, but like, implicating the Pope. And just to preface, the article doesn't say that he actually committed committed sexual misconduct. It was that he knew about it. He knew about at
Right.
least 4 different cases and did absolutely
Knowledge of
nothing.
allegations.
Yeah,
Right. Knowledge of
exactly.
allegations. That's what's
Exactly.
missing.
Also,
Right.
maybe it's related. There is a relation because he's not the Pope anymore. It's just the ex-Pope. Maybe that's why he can be touched now. But maybe the same thing is happening with the current Pope, and we just don't know because it's the Pope. Who knows?
Well,
Mhm.
I'm glad you said that, Teo, because when we were preparing for this, I specifically said the only thing I want to focus on personally with this article are the last 3 paragraphs. And for everybody out there watching us when this premieres, and for everybody, checking this out later on, please go to the links, read these articles that we were talking about, because here's why. Here's the thing that infuriated me when I read this. That Cardinal Reinhard Marx was he was in charge. He was in charge of this place where these terrible things happened. Now, again, as Dan and Cynthia have said, he wasn't accused of committing these acts. But what happened under his watch is undeniably his responsibility.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And Cardinal Marx sees those wrongdoings. He sees his own failings. And he asked the current pope, old Frankie, he said, "Hey, put somebody else in my place because I failed." And the pope rejected that.
Mm.
That right there, in my opinion, is the rot, is the absolute degradation and garbage that is at the core of this. And the first thing that came to my mind, and I know I'm not going to say it perfectly, but Christopher Hitchens said something along the lines of, "If I love you, I can pay your debt. And if I love you more, I can serve your time in jail, but I cannot absolve you of your wrongdoings. I cannot take away your responsibility." And anybody that offers to do that is not somebody we should put our trust in, is not
Well,
somebody that we should join. And that infuriated me when I read that, because it's happening right now. Still to this day, they are doing things. This pope that everybody said he's gonna make changes, he's gonna bring about better things.
Right.
Apparently not.
you're absolutely
Apparently
right,
not.
secular Rarity. It'd be one thing if there were active measures being taken place, and of course, the church has said, "Oh, yes, we're doing these restructurings, we're trying to figure things out." But
Mhm.
it's well known at this point that some of the ongoing legal battles that are happening in the United States, but also worldwide, are lawyers from the Catholic Church specifically trying to change laws in this country, specifically laws that are reflecting one, age of consent, but also when you can report on
Mhm.
sexual abuse cases. That one
Yeah.
specifically, okay. And the same lawyers are also doing the same thing with protection of the Boy Scouts of America. Just as a side note, as an Eagle Scout myself, the reason
Mm.
why they're actually sharing some of those legal resources and why it's to that interest is because the bankruptcy with the recent Boy Scout case, if that falls through, might actually have some liabilities on the church itself rather
Mm.
than the sexual abuse lawsuits that happen with the Boy Scouts. So that's an aside. But point being, right? Like they're still actively trying to make it so that they're going to have less money to pay at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of these cases are about. And so it's kind of talking off out of both sides of the mouth, right? It's like one thing they're saying, we want to try to change things. We want to try to make things better. We acknowledge the problem. The other thing is, let's make sure that we can change all these laws to make sure that we don't have to run into this problem when it does come up. So,
Right.
You just made me remember that in December we were talking here about how the Catholic Church is spending more money fighting against the victims of sexual abuse instead of just paying the money that they should be paying.
yeah.
And then these guys go and ask people for donations in order to pay for those instead of, using the money of the church.
Mhm.
It's there are so many layers of awfulness in here that it's impossible not to talk about the Catholic Church and get angry and upset about all these disgusting things that they are doing. Disgusting, that's the word. It's described the whole church, the whole situation, and everybody trying to protect these pedophiles, these rapists, not even pedophiles, so rapists, child rapists.
Yeah.
Even aren't even non-rapists. I remember when the Pope had to admit that there were some nuns who were sexual slaves, and as you mentioned, they had to have abortions every certain time because of the church and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's actually it's absolutely egregious. And even if we're going even further, speaking about the Catholic Church and like how these, of course, this is the largest landowner in the world, and they are sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars,
Yep.
and they take in money, as you said, Teo, and ask for money, and they get a lot of money, not only from donations but also from government entities because of their charity status. Okay, so they can get like grants, and they get other government entity government funding, and also they're tax exempt, right? Because of this is a faith-based organization. And even reports have come out, I want to say over the last 3 years, on how Catholic Charities, part of the money that they were taking in to even like run the charity, majority of it did not go to charity. A lot of it went to paying off like sexual abuse cases, and also lawyers fees and law and all this other stuff. And the very thing that it was set up to do, which was to provide charity for people who need it, we're not really necessarily getting it. I know that even in the city that I live right now in, Catholic Charities basically has a monopoly on services here. And I'm pretty sure that it is pretty it pretty much copies itself, like as you go from one municipality to another. I know that they are the ones who are in charge of getting people who happen to call for shelter off the street. So, they get the call, not necessarily like a city service, to go ahead and pick people up and then take them to a shelter. And a lot of the shelters that are preferred are faith-based ran ones. And a lot of them are ran by the Catholic Church. And that's even more money that they're able to even get from government entities in order for them to stay in business. But, again, it comes to the point where, you know, it has to be to the point where we just got to say enough is enough.
Yeah.
Because like if we're really not holding organizations like the Catholic Church truly accountable for the acts that it has committed for centuries now, multiple centuries now, I mean, we're still going to be in the same rut over and over again, and still talking about this over and over again. I would love to see some action concerning this whole this whole thing that we're dealing with when it comes to the Catholic Church and sexual abuse cases and people who have been victimized by them multiple times and they're not getting justice. So before we move on, let's go ahead and just get some final thoughts from everybody. I'm just going to start with you, Secular Rarity, because you didn't talk as much. So
I know that's surprising. I know everybody out there will be like, how the hell has he kept his mouth shut? So again, we're still early into the show, folks, and I don't want to get too pissed off about this, but I am very, very angry about this. And I think a lot of us will be tempted as good skeptics as we try to be. We'll say, whoa. Are we sure this is something that's like the Catholic Church? Is this really something core to their ideology and organization? Bad people are everywhere in positions of no. This is entirely something that has at its core an ideology that helps perpetuate this garbage, because there is an individual who has the direct line to the almighty, to the all-powerful Sky Daddy. And that Sky Daddy and that person, when you feel bad because you did something bad, he'll wipe it away and he'll forgive you and he'll absolve your guilt. He'll absolve your bad feelings. And that's disgusting. And that's harmful to the core. So yes, bad people are all over the place. But some places allow those people, hide those people, and perpetuate the garbage that they do. And that's this organization.
Word up. Can't say any more. Teo.
Yeah, I totally agree with Secular again. And I guess my only question would be, people, what the heck are you waiting for? How the heck can you see all this awful stuff that the Catholic Church is doing, and you still keep protecting the freaking church? You keep giving them money. What the hell is wrong with you people? What do you want from them to stop protecting and giving them money? Do you want them to go outside and start killing people? Who am I kidding? They would probably still defend them if they are able to defend them after this awful institution protecting child rapists. And it's so terrible because they always are going to be looking for excuses, and that makes me sick. That's it. It's disgusting. It's awful. And people who want to protect those pedophiles, no, not pedophiles, sorry, child rapists, they make me sick. That's all I have to say.
Yo enferma también. Dan, what you got?
Well, as of course I agree with the rest of you. I do find it funny when people say, "Well, this can happen anywhere. There's bad people, and all places you go." And to say that it's too ambitious to stop the aggregation of child rape. It wasn't too ambitious for the Catholic Church to colonize the entire planet and to separate children from their families and to bring their faith amongst the entire world population. I think that we can at least call for some accountability to prevent child rapists from touching people, right? I think that that's not too ambitious of an idea. And I think that, as you've mentioned, Cynthia, the world's largest landowners, one of the most powerful religions in this entire planet, can do it. If they really put their minds to it, I think they can. I don't doubt that.
That's right. And I just like to say that, Pope Francis, if he is such a reformer that, everyone calls him that or what have you, then it's up to him, because as Secular Rarity said, that he supposedly has a direct line to Almighty Sky Daddy to really get this organization under wrap and key, under lock and key, and make sure that there is accountability to the organization for the atrocities that have been committed multiple times under their watch, in their leadership, and everyone knows about it. It's not a secret that, child rapists have been reported in every state in the United States, and just about every country that the Catholic Church has set up dioceses. So if we know that this is a fact, then it is up to this organization's leadership to get it together. And it's not by, you know, turning a blind eye, or, you know, trying to change laws to make sure that their punishments are less than somebody else who would have done the same thing but is outside of their organization of protection.